Hey y'all, today is book review day. I absolutely love to read, and I usually get through about one book a week, and just kind of depending on my schedule. Sometimes I can get too crammed in there, but usually one, and it keeps me up at night. Maybe y'all know what I mean. I just I can't stop reading if the book is good. So, but I thought I've started to keep like a book log to kind of see like when I start, when I finish, how it made me feel, just to kind of get me thinking a little bit more about the book instead of just flipping right through it. So, most of the stuff I read is fiction, like 95% is fiction. You know, I love thrillers and mysteries, and toss in the occasional chick lit because sometimes you just need a break from the death and the murders and the crimes. So today I have with us, joining us, is Stephen King's Fairy Tale. I got a few Barnes & Noble gift cards for Christmas, so I was able to go like buy new books. It's very difficult to buy new books because they're so expensive. I typically, now, and y'all will see, I typically buy my books at estate sales, so they're like $3 for a hardback or $1 for a paperback. And so I may not always be reviewing the newest books, but it doesn't mean they're not still good. So today is Stephen King's Fairy Tale. I am keeping a log while I'm reading, kind of to track like how I feel when I'm reading, like characters I can't quite get into, any points of confusion, how I felt about the ending, because sometimes, you know, you read a book and you're like, wah wah at the end. So I just kind of wanted to talk through that. One thing I'm not going to be doing, I'm not going to be giving any synopses of any books that I talk about, because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't read it, and also because you can very easily look that stuff up on the internet. So I just kind of want to talk about my experience with the book. So kind of open up my notes. I know I said I wasn't gonna have a whole lot of notes when I'm doing my videos because I'm just gonna kind of keep it real chill, but here we are. Okay, so Stephen King's Fairy Tale, I believe this is his newest-ish book that he's put out. I have this massive version. They're probably all massive at this point. So it was published in 2022. There are 598 pages in my version of it, and it took me, let's see, eight days to read it. So I can say too, if I read quickly through a book, it's gonna be up there on my like. So I gave this one a 9 out of 10, and because I feel like there was a section in there that was like a little long for no reason, and I was like, okay, let's move it along. So I think that was like my reason for the 9 out of 10. But reading through it, the book is intense. It did have me on the edge of my seat, probably my bed, because that's usually where I read, is in bed. But it did also fill me with compassion and empathy for a lot of the characters, and it was good read. So I felt good. I guess good. I don't know. I'm gonna start thinking in better words than good. I felt really, good reading it, and then after I read it, right? Because sometimes you put down a book and you're like, ugh, or you're like, oh, So this one, after I read it, I felt satisfied. I felt cozy, cocooned. It is very fairy tale-ish, and yeah, you know the generalizations about fairy tales. Again, I don't want to say anything that will give anything away, but I felt good after I read this. Like, I felt really good during it. There was some very intense parts. I kind of worried for some of the characters, but it felt like while I was reading it, I was like, surely it's gonna be okay, right? Like, I don't know. But like at the end, like, I really felt like, okay, all is right with the world, and so that kind of goes into, like, I feel like it got wrapped up well at the end. And I mean, obviously it's Stephen King. He's, you know, been around a while, knows what he's doing. But it was really, like, overall just a very enjoyable read. It flowed really, really easily. It was written in, I'm gonna say first person. I don't know all the technical terms, but it, you know, it was written from the main character's point of view. And occasionally, like, there was at least once he switched characters just for like a second. And but yes, mainly from the main character's point of view. And it was an easy read. I've read a few other Stephen King books that I was like, I couldn't follow where the story was going, because it was just kind of so choppy in its writing. But this one flowed really well. Characters I loved Percy. He was such a solid dude. Dora, sweetheart. Radar, the dog. Like, who couldn't love the dog, you know? Charlie who's our main character, and his dad. Charlie's courage through the whole thing, you know, and trying to think, like, would I be able to do that if it were me? Absolutely not. And so it was really good to read, you know, I guess get encouragement from another character who can show you, like, yeah, you could do these things, you know, if you really, like, what do I say, pull your bootstraps up, or I don't know, whatever the phrase is. And then just to the dad, his dad was very compassionate. They'd been through a lot together, and this is just really a wholesome read for Stephen King. I don't know. There were a few characters, though. Obviously, I guess the bad guys. Flight Killer and Petra were like a couple of the bad guys or whatever. They couldn't hang with them. Then there was another character, Claudia, who was like on the good side, but she was yelling all the time. Not her fault, but just yelling. I don't know, just all the capital letters kinda got to me. There was two areas of confusion for me. They talk about the fair one, and for the longest time while I was reading it, I was like, I didn't know who this person was, and then it turned out it's not a person. It's an event. So there was that that kind of got me. And then there are two, like, the bad guys. So the Flight Killer and is Eldon, but is not Kellen. And anyway, there's a few of the bad guys that I was like, are these the same people? If they're not the same people, could they be the same people? I'm not even sure. It did clear up a little at the end, but it was a little bit confusing while I was reading through it. Also, I think too, a great addition would have been a map, because he goes in this fairy tale land, and so, like, a map of kind of where everything was laid out would have been very helpful. There might have been some parts that couldn't really be mapped out, but a general overview of the region would have been helpful in my brain to kind of help me picture where everything was and where they were going on their adventures. One thing I do want to, like, include in my reviews is a favorite quote. In this particular one, I didn't have one. Not because there wasn't one, but when I get a quote from a book, it's something that's just like, wow, you know, like, it just kind of hits me, and I'm like, that is introspective or cool or like very wise, something like that. And there wasn't really anything like that in here. Not a bad thing. But I don't have a favorite quote. So overall, I really love this book. And so my measure of how good a book is would I read it again? And yes, this is a hard yes for me on reading it again. And maybe, I do. Oh my gosh, y'all, my to be read pile. I just went to an estate sale last week and got like 6 books, and one of the books has 3 in it. So I technically got 8 books. So my to be read pile has grown. So it might be a while before I read this one again. And I usually go a few years in between reading books so that I can forget what happened. So it's all new to me. Yes, so I am a person who will reread books. I have a growing library. One day I want a wall full of books, so we're making our way there. So yes, y'all get this. This is a fantastic read, and I hope y'all will love it as much as I do. Talk soon.